It's another Thunder Thursday here on NewsOK.com. I'm Jenny Carlson, joined by part of our Thunder coverage team, two-thirds of the coverage team that witnessed that big win last night as the Thunder now heads into the All-Star break. I am at our new downtown office, first time that we are here since we moved in, so if we have any technical difficulties, I will take the blame, but joining me from his home really not too far away now, Anthony. Anthony Slater, Thunder beat writer. What's up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Yeah, you're about 7 minutes. I did the walk the other day. It's about 7 minutes or so away, walk.
Not bad. So. If you got a bike, you'd be here in about a minute, I think.
Yeah, well, depends on how crazy I want to get on the downtown roads. But if you time me, I bet I could do it in 2 minutes.
If you were on the clock. I get it. And from his home in Norman, Barry Trammell joins us. Barry, how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Good deal.
If I walked it, it would take me about 7 hours.
It would not take you 7 hours. Oh, you mean from your house in Norman?
From my house, yeah.
Well, better than 10 when we were up on Broadway Extension.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, well. Hey, Thunder Thursday is brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet. Take the drive down I-40 and save yourself some money there in Hinton. All right, guys, well, let's get talking about the Thunder. Obviously playing some really good basketball right now. Winners of 3 straight as these guys head into the All-Star break this weekend. Let's start with you, Anthony, and do this for me. Describe the first half of the Thunder season in one word.
Crazy. As crazy a regular season. I've only covered 2 on the beat. I've really only covered 3 if you include this season I blogged. You guys have obviously been here longer. This had to have been the craziest up and down first half with, injuries, obviously, and everything, wins, losses. Oh, you think they're back, and then they have a losing streak. You think they're done, and then they're back again. It's really had it all, and it's really set up what should be a wild second half and, into the playoffs as far as they can go.
Barry, what about you? Do that, what I asked Anthony to do. Describe the first half of the Thunder season in one word.
I would say a constant struggle. It's like AC said. When one injury after another, one slump after another, just when you think the Thunder's about to break into the clear, no, not going to happen. So at some point they gotta, so they gotta hit some free and easy clearance. But so far we hadn't seen it. Maybe this is the start of it.
By the way, I did say one word, and you said constant struggle. We need to work on our math around here.
Struggle.
Struggle. Yeah, that's for sure. And the struggle looked like it could potentially continue last night as a couple different guys had injuries, which, frankly, guys, it just seems like this has become sort of how it goes. Serge Ibaka gets whomped in the nose by, I believe, Zach Randolph's elbow. He has to leave for a while, comes back. Dion Waiters comes up hobbling on a twisted ankle, it looked like, later in the game. Obviously, Steven Adams and his hand. I know Anthony's in mourning for Big Steve going down for a while. But Anthony, I know it's brought to us by the American Red Cross, but any Thunder injury update, especially as it relates to those 2 last night?
Serge Ibaka, I believe, Instagram post today that said he did. Good news, I didn't break my nose. Mm-hmm. He'll be fine. I mean, even if he did break his nose, that's not usually typically a long-term thing. Sometimes guys just wear face masks. That's not really an issue going forward. Durant, we'll see. We'll see how much he does at All-Star Weekend. I mean, it sounds like it's just a soreness thing. It's not a structural or a refracture type deal, at least at this point. He was limping pretty bad last night, as bad as we've seen since the surgery. But, he's talking about maybe playing in the All-Star game, so I think he can and should probably, maybe get 10 to 15 minutes in the All-Star game this weekend. And I think if he does play in it, that's a good sign that it really just is a soreness thing that he may have to deal with the rest of the season. He may have to deal with the rest of his career. Who knows? It's a concern, but I don't think it's as heavy of a concern as we might have thought in the fourth quarter last night.
Well, Barry, let's talk about KD's foot for just a second, because you guys saw him hobbling around. Everybody that was at the peak saw him hobbling around, really hard to miss. Then he's got the big ice pack essentially around his foot on the bench. Scott Brooks saying after the game that if it was more than sore, he wouldn't have played. So this was just strictly a soreness issue. But how troubling is this in your mind, Barry?
Oh, it's a little bit concerning because of what we've seen. The plagues of Egypt seem to be descending on Egypt with the Thunder. So Serge Ibaka gets hit in the head, and you think he's probably got a concussion, knocks him out 2 weeks. Durant's limping, so he's out a month. You just come to believe the worst, but I think it's going to be okay. I actually buy Scotty Brooks' story about the soreness. When you come back from an injury, it does develop some soreness. And he's played such off and on basketball. If he'd been able to play straight since the surgery, it might be one thing. But he's had the off and on going on, so I can buy that.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the reason why everyone's so concerned is because of what Durant's been through. If he started limping in a February game last year, people would have been like, oh yeah, well he's got a little, maybe twisted an ankle or something.
Yeah, definitely so. Hey, Barry, Anthony mentions that he feels like Durant may get in the 10 to 15 minute range, or maybe could. I don't know what you want to say there, but what are your feelings about his All-Star game participation?
Well, if he plays more than 15 minutes, there needs to be an investigation. Adam Silver and Sam Presti having a sit down with Steve Kerr. If I'm Steve Kerr, I tell Kevin, you know what, Kevin, I really think you ought to play 42 minutes. I'll take you out for 3 minutes and a half, and let's see some defense tonight. Have somebody talk some smack, get the East mad at Durant, get everything going.
But put him in a ton of pick and rolls.
Yeah, if cooler heads prevail, Durant will play about 5 minutes at the start of the second quarter, about 5 minutes at the start of the fourth quarter, and call it a weekend.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to be playing very much, guys. In fact, we were talking in here in the office a little bit ago, considering what we saw last night. If they wanted to, give him one of those, we were talking about golf carts earlier up here, the fact that we might need to get a fleet of golf carts to take people around downtown. I think if they want to just get him a golf cart and let him sort of hang out over the weekend, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad deal at all. Hey, Anthony, let's switch gears here, talk a bit about Mitch McGary for a second. Kind of came back down to earth last night. But, some good performances, obviously, by Nick Collison, Kendrick Perkins, Serge Ibaka after the facial whatever last night. It looks like this Thunder front court is fairly strong, fairly deep, and that's obviously without your guy Steven Adams. Is that group a best in the West type of potential for the second half?
No, I mean, it's not better than, the front line they play. I know they outplayed the Grizzlies last night, but it's not a better front line than the Grizzlies. But it may be as promising a front line as this franchise has ever had as far as Steven Adams is 21. He's a starting center. He seems to be emerging. Serge Ibaka, though he's having a little down year, is 26. I mean, he's still a really solid player. And then you got Mitch McGary coming up, it's early, but he's starting to – I know it's 2 games and 2 double-doubles, but he seems to have some David Lee type potential, and he's only 21 too, him and Adams. So I think they've never felt as good about their front line of the future as they do right now. You're on mute, Jamie.
Glad I got somebody here to help me. Thanks, AC. As Anthony says, Barry, this front court probably wouldn't be considered better than a Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, and then on into the Grizzly bench when it comes to depth. But when you talk about 5 guys that can all play some defense, some play better offense than others, how much, how does this set up the Thunder potentially for the playoffs? When you think about, who could be in their way, there could be some pretty formidable teams that would stand between the Thunder and a potential run to the NBA Finals.
The most underrated aspect of this Thunder team in the last 4 or 5 years always has been its interior defense. And the top 2 things this team has going for it is elite scoring with Durant and Westbrook and interior defense with Perkins, Ibaka, and Collison. And then you've got Adams coming along and playing well. Now Mitch McGary, who's not any kind of defensive whiz, now and may never be, but he's a very accomplished offensive player. So the interior depth of this team is underrated. And when they play a Memphis, when they play a Houston, when they play a San Antonio, teams that can hurt you inside, the Thunder has a counter for that. That's why I think somebody like Golden State would be a bad matchup for the Thunder, while a Memphis, despite their many repeated close battles, would actually be a good matchup for the Thunder.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Barry, especially in the West where you've got these teams with some really awesome, basically, guys in the paint, whether you're talking about DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin or Gasol and Randolph. I mean, while those guys have some defensive prowess too, the Thunder's locked them down in past years. Duncan, while obviously the Spurs got him last year, that's really been an area where they've been able to neutralize some of the best players in the West, teams that really do have that height advantage. It's going to be interesting to see, I think, too, what the rotation becomes when Steven Adams gets healthy. Anthony, do you feel like Scott Brooks will alter anything, considering what he's seeing out of these guys right now?
It's going to be interesting because you got to think Adams is going to get right back in the starting lineup, and then you have backup center minutes to kind of divvy out between Kendrick Perkins and Mitch McGary, and everyone, all on this panel understand Kendrick Perkins' importance, especially against a team like Memphis. Yeah. But if Mitch McGary can, keep putting some of these performances out like he has been, I mean, he's an option on offense they haven't had beyond Adams or Perkins as far as catching and finishing like really consistently. We thought Adams was an upgrade over Perkins. Well, McGary looks to be an offensive upgrade over Adams. So it might be team to team, it might be matchup to matchup. But McGary, like against a team like the Warriors, Mitch McGary could find himself a nice role where Perkins might not matter as much against the Warriors, who I think they're going to be playing in the first round.
Barry, does Scott Brooks give any pause to, especially the way these guys played defense last night? I mean, I know Memphis is no offensive juggernaut, but still, with the guys that they've got inside, the way that the Thunder played, does Scott Brooks give any pause to the idea of maybe going back to Kendrick Perkins as a starter instead of Steven Adams? I'm not even going to ask AC because I know the answer from him.
Don't stunt the growth.
I don't think so, but it's a fabulous question. It's a fabulous question because the truth of the matter is Perkins played excellent last night. He was plus 26 in the plus-minus, and I think he had a bigger plus than he had minutes played.
Wow.
So, when Perk was on the court last night, good things happened. That's generally the way it is against Memphis, though.
Yeah, I mean
Perk is made for the Grizzlies, and AC's right. Against the Warriors, he's really not much use because they don't really have any inside scoring. So I think it's team to team. I doubt Perk gets back in the lineup if Adams returns, but I do think he'll play a bunch.
Yeah, to me it's team. To me, Adams is your best two-way center. He can play defense. He can play offense. He starts. And then if you play a Warriors team, well, you need an offensive running type center. You play McGary. You play a team like the Grizzlies, you need more defense. You play Perk. That's how I kind of think it'll work out the rest of the year.
Hey, guys, for folks who are watching us, newsok.com/live is where you're watching, and you see that we've got a little chat window over there. If you've got questions, comments, feel free to jump on in there. We've got a couple. Grant says, for him, the Thunder season in one word is uncertainty, which I think is reasonable. DW's got a question, though, and this definitely leads into our next area, which is now that we're at the midseason point, as we head into All-Star Weekend, we can talk about midseason awards, and DW wants to know picks for the MVP. Barry, let's start with you. Who is your MVP at this point?
Well, it's not a very innovative selection.
Mine neither.
But to me, it's clearly LeBron James, for crying out loud.
Oh, never mind. That's not mine.
If anybody wants to pick somebody besides LeBron, they're going to have to give me a really good reason. Now, there's other good candidates: James Harden, Steph Curry. Not anybody. I think you can make a. I don't know if you can make a case for anybody else besides those, but LeBron, Anthony Davis is okay. But
Anthony Davis has been the best player in the league this year. He's just not on a very good team.
Well, the impact that LeBron has made on the league and on the Cavs and on the races, I just think I think we're looking for a reason to give it to somebody else.
I agree with that, and I still think he's the best player. He did have that stretch where he sat out, and they are like fifth in a bad Eastern Conference. I think they'll end up being about second. But so, I mean, I wouldn't mind at all if LeBron get it, but I do think you're right in the sense that I think we may be looking for somebody else to get it. And I think Steph Curry's going to get it. The Warriors are 41-9. He's putting up crazy numbers. They're fun to watch. Everyone loves Steph Curry. And an argument can be made that he has been the MVP, so I think he will be the MVP.
It's interesting as you think about the Warriors and that crazy record and Steph Curry and the Splash Brothers and all that. I think Steve Kerr made the right choice going with the Warriors instead of the Knicks.
You think? I mean, I don't know. The talent level seems pretty even. Lance Thomas getting big minutes for the Knicks. Lou Amundsen's one of their best players.
Hey, seriously, Golden State's bench would beat the Knicks starters in a series. Probably sweep them.
Maybe.
I still think the Knicks, every time I see the Knicks doing anything, I think about the movie Eddie, which I'm not even sure if AC was around.
I love that movie. My boy Rick Fox is in that movie.
You love Eddie? Oh, my gosh.
It's a good movie.
This hangout's about ready to go off the rails. You know what, though? The players that play for the Knicks sort of are all, like, I sort of see them all as, like, typecasting. Like, it wasn't Eddie. Like, there was the crazy, like, egocentric guy and the crazy country guy. And, like, I think these Knicks are the same way. It's really strange how, like, Eddie becomes reality. Except I don't know who Whoopi Goldberg is. That's yet to be seen.
I was going to say that the plot in Eddie has definitely not played out because we have not had a fan come down and coach.
No, definitely not. Hey, just to finish up this MVP discussion, question, I mentioned DW asked about that, and I'll ask the second part of his question, which is, does Russ have a chance at all at that award? Is there any chance that Russell Westbrook, AC, makes a push towards the MVP voting?
Not a legitimate, serious one. I mean, he can kind of be in that fringe discussion of guys who've had just monster years. He's probably had his best year ever, but he's missed, I believe, 14 games. The Thunder are going to be an 8 seed, and then Kevin Durant still comes back and is his 1A, 1B type thing. So, no, he's not going to legitimately be in this year's discussion.
Russ's problem is this: if the Thunder has a strong second half, it's going to be
Durant.
It's going to be Durant as part of it. Russ may still be playing great, but if Durant doesn't play, or say gets hurt again or whatever, then that's the only chance Russell has. But the Thunder, I think, has shown that it's not going to do much without Durant and Westbrook. So I don't see any scenario by which Russell MVP of the playoffs, sure. MVP of the regular season, I don't think so.
You know, it's interesting, and Barry, I think you mentioned him, James Harden. I thought there for a while he might end up being the guy that at the halfway mark was the leading candidate for MVP. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen this year. It's not to say it won't happen ever, though. And if and when that does happen, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Thunder fans, Thunder types, whoever you want to talk about with the Thunder, how they all react to that. Because watching James Harden go crazy early in the season, especially when OKC had everybody hurt, I think that was kind of a shock to the system for a lot of people. So let's talk about a few more mid-season awards. Anthony, let's talk Defensive Player of the Year. Who gets your vote right now for Defensive Player of the Year?
Oh, that's a good question. Defensive Player of the Year.
Barry, you got any thoughts on that?
Anthony Davis, probably. If he's not going to win MVP, I'll take
Davis is who came to my mind. He blocks shots like Serge Ibaka, rebounds like Dwight Howard. I don't know what more you could ask out of the guy.
And he's a pretty good individual defender just because he's so long.
Yeah, definitely so. What about rookies? Who's your Rookie of the Year, Barry?
It's pretty clear.
Go ahead, AC.
Andrew Wiggins. Or Mitch McGary, right, if he can make a push. No, Andrew Wiggins, I think it's been pretty clearly the Rookie of the Year.
It has not been a great rookie crop.
No.
Well, it was supposed to be. A lot of them got hurt.
Yeah, considering it was supposed to be the class of all time. I thought Jabari Parker had a shot at it, but he gets knocked out early.
Julius Randle goes down in the
Randle
game.
barely played, so but Wiggins is going to be a star, and he's really good now. So I think he's the guy.
What about most improved? AC, you got a leader for most improved?
Oh man, I'm blanking right now. Somebody I was thinking about this award the other day, and somebody was like really obvious. Jimmy Butler, I think, is probably going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
I got a name for you. DeMarre Carroll is playing great.
You love DeMarre Carroll.
I do love DeMarre Carroll. There's no doubt about that. However, he's playing great, and he was just a guy. I mean, he was just a guy there for a long while.
It's true, but usually it goes to not somebody that went just a guy to really good rotation player. It's usually rotation player to star is just typically how that award goes. Not star, but like, a Jimmy Butler type. I think he's the kind of player that usually wins that award, and I think he'll win.
He's a great choice. He's become a star.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, lastly on our midseason awards rundown, guys, Coach of the Year. Who wants to take a stab at that first?
Not Scott Brooks.
Gee, I didn't say who wasn't. I said who is. Come on.
It's a Thunder hangout, so I had to get that out of the way.
It's the guy in Atlanta, clearly.
Yeah, Budenholzer. I would agree with that. The only other guy.
You don't even know the name, Barry.
I didn't say I knew his name. I just said the guy in Atlanta.
Mike Budenholzer. He'd be a good option, and then if you look in the West, Steve Kerr would be the other option. I think Budenholzer though. Budenholzer doesn't have a Steph Curry. And you can argue that Mark Jackson kind of built that team up. Budenholzer really has built that Hawks team himself and is now coaching them to whatever. They're way out in front in the East.
Definitely so. All right, guys, let's get off the awards track and talk more second half predictions. By the way, if you're watching us, this is the Thunder Thursday Hangout brought to you by Wheeler Chevrolet, talking Thunder, talking NBA. Guys, on the newsok.com/live page, we got a question that leads us into this second half predictions. The Hollinger numbers say that the playoff odds for Oklahoma City, this is from John, says that Oklahoma City has a 1.5% chance to win the championship. Barry, is that a fair percentage?
I think it's a little low. I would go more in the range of. I'd go more in the range of
7.
Well, let's say I think they got about a 75% chance of making it to the playoffs. Right, something like that.
More than that.
You think more than that? Whatever. Let's go 80. That's a good round number. And then when you get into a series against the Warriors, I think then the odds drop dramatically. I think Thunder's in the 30, maybe 35% range
of winning that series.
And if you go the next series, that might be a 50-50 series. If you go to the finals, 50-50. So you're down in the 4 to 5% range.
AC, is that
Wait. That's not the finals. To win the finals, then you're down in the 2% range. Because that's a 50-50 deal. So I'll say Hollinger's pretty close.
All right.
Yeah, I think the Hollinger thing doesn't take as much into account, like, hey, they had a ton of injuries, but now they have their full team back. It's just more, this team is 27-25. They've scored this many per possession, blah, blah, blah. So I agree. I'd say, not doing like strict math like Barry just did, I'd probably say between 5 and 10%. It's weird. I mean, I agree they'd have about a 35% chance against the Warriors in that first round, but I'd really favor them if they got into a second round series with like the Blazers or Rockets or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, maybe my math's off, but if I'm off, I go from 50% to 60%, so it doesn't change dramatically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys are right, because it does look like that first-round series would be against the Warriors. That's where the Thunder can really figure out a way to kick it into gear and even get to the 7 seed. It would be huge when it comes to their playoff odds.
We talked about that on the podcast that should be dropping right about as we speak today. It's really unlikely that they get to the 7. I believe they're 6.5 behind the Clippers and 6 behind the Spurs. I don't think they're going to be 6 games better than the Spurs in the second half. And I know Blake Griffin's out, but Clippers would really have to fall off. So it's really, to me, is looking like they're going to get the 8 and the Warriors are going to get the 1. It's setting up like that.
Wow. At this point, are you guys firmly in the Thunder in the playoffs camp?
Yeah. The Pelicans are 1 game back of the Thunder. Anthony Davis is having some injury issues. They just don't have enough around him, so I've kind of already eliminated them in my mind. The Suns, they're frisky, but they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. I think their last 10 games, they really ruined their shot to separate themselves from the Thunder, because the Thunder are going to close harder. They have an easier schedule. They have a lot of home games, and they're proven.
In, Barry, or out?
Well, I think they're in. I think I gave it a 75% chance, so I'll stick with that. I think, barring further injury, I think they're going to get in. They're playing well. They're better than the Suns when they have everybody. Really, a lot better. When they have everybody, the Thunder's about as good as anybody in the West, with the possible exception of the Warriors, if they turn out to be in the playoffs, what we've seen in the regular season. So, if the Thunder can just get there, they're going to have a fighting chance.
Sure, definitely. So I think I saw somebody.
And I think they're going to get there.
Yeah, and I think I saw somebody mention last night, or maybe it was a couple nights ago, that you get reminded, when these guys start playing like they are currently, when they've got everybody, when they're firing on all cylinders, just how good, how tough this team can be. So I think that there's that realization that if they get in, that's not a typical 8 that gets in to the playoffs with that kind of talent. Lastly, guys, on this, and then we've got one more question on the newsok.com live page, talking about playoffs, talking about the finals. Who are your finals teams right now? AC, who you got in the finals?
Warriors, Cavs. And I'll take the Cavs, which was I picked the Cavs at the start of the season, and then it was looking like, that might be a terrible pick, but now I feel like it's back to that might be
All right, Cavs, Warriors for AC. Barry, who you got?
I got Memphis Cavs, and I'll take Memphis to win it all.
Wow.
I think that
I cut off. Who do you say?
Memphis Cavs.
I could see that too. I mean, Memphis is legit. Last night we didn't see it, but it just seemed like they kind of laid down a little bit last night.
They were tired last night.
Yeah, that was a giveaway game. You could almost tell in Dave Yeager's pregame comments last night, it was like, I don't know how much energy they're going to come out with tonight.
Hey, lastly, guys, before we finish up, trade deadline fast approaches, and Tavia888, who I don't know what that all means, has a question on the chat live page that says, Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Lamb, Perry Jones, who's more likely to be traded this week? And is there any chance that Wilson Chandler, who's looking decent from time to time, any chance that maybe he's on the Thunder radar? AC, what are you hearing about potential trade deadline trades?
If I had to rank those 3, or at least pick the guy I think is gone, I'd say Jeremy Lamb. It seems better for both sides. Jeremy Lamb gets a fresh start somewhere. The Thunder maybe get a second-round pick or some type of asset and just kind of cut ties with him. After that, I mean, Perry Jones could be used in a package, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Thunder used him in a package. But he still sometimes comes in and plays occasionally. And, if Durant has some injury issues, he kind of does become somewhat important. Reggie Jackson, I just don't think they'll get enough. I don't think they'll get a rotation player, so I think they're going to keep him through the season. Maybe not. Wilson Chandler, if Reggie Jackson's gone, he could be in a package to get a guy like Wilson Chandler. Maybe that is something they do. I think the wing position is where the Thunder are the weakest.
Barry, what's the likely trade deadline scenario for the Thunder? Do something, do nothing? What are we going to see out of this team?
I think it's most likely they do nothing. Of those 3 guys mentioned, I think it's most likely that Perry Jones is gone for this reason. I don't think the Thunder can get enough to warrant trading Jackson. I think AC is right. And I don't think anybody wants Jeremy Lamb. Well, Perry Jones has some value. He's had some games this year where you thought, hey, this guy's an NBA player. He's big. He's athletic. He's a prince of a guy. I think there would be some teams interested in Perry Jones.
If you're the Sixers, though, do you not say, well, we have 9 second-round picks the next 2 years. Here's 1 or 2 of them, Thunder. We'll take a chance on Jeremy Lamb. He has had some he's had some 20-point nights. I'm not saying he's going to be an NBA player, but why not roll the dice with a couple second-round picks if you're the Sixers?
Hey,
laughing at me, Barry?
I think he was laughing at you, or maybe.
No, I was laughing with that old names. I don't think the Sixers have any interest in Jeremy Lamb.
I'm just saying there's got to be some team that, hey, here's a second-round pick, we'll take a chance.
Some team, yes. The Sixers, no.
Hey, lastly, guys, before we go, real quick, I guess part of All-Star Weekend is some sort of All-Star fashion show. We haven't heard if Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant or anybody like that is going to be involved, but wouldn't you think that those guys would at least be contenders to win if there's such a thing as winning the fashion show?
Not Durant. I mean, he's
You mean not Durant? He dresses better than Westbrook.
Well, yeah, but
just because you dress up funny and say I'm a fashion maven doesn't mean you look good.
Well, I'll just say Durant doesn't stand out above other guys that are going to be out there, so I don't think he's.
If it's a standout show, then give Westbrook a chance. If it's a fashion show.
Where's Serge Ibaka?
Yeah, Serge Ibaka. Put Ibaka in that thing. Put Caron Butler in that thing. Put Derek Fisher in that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Derek Fisher he must have had 300 suits.
They're going to use this year.
That's true. That's true. Hey, thanks for joining us on this Thunder Thursday Hangout. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman. Thanks, guys.
See ya.